press record, and I believe we're recording now. So thank you very much. We're going to be talking about servicing today. So what I'd like to do, I know you've already raised your hands, we're just going to do the very first poll here. So just to get your fingers ready. So first of all, just pull it up on the screen. You can take a little bit of time just to have a quick look and answer the question, do you offer servicing, please? Excellent. So 2/3 view, 3/4. Just give you 5 more seconds to vote. Okay, so let's have a look at the answers. Okay, so we can see that 77% of people actually do servicing in-house, 15% offer servicing using an off-site servicing technician, and 8% are not offering servicing yet. So there's quite a lot of you that are already doing servicing, so this is going to be a topic that's going to be quite close to your heart and also to your business plan as well. So let me just take that back. Okay, and what I wanted to do is now just find out how many of the audience are actually using Eve to organise and process your servicing as well. So if I could just ask you just to answer this question for me, please. Okay, so just 5 more seconds and then we'll close the vote. Okay, so let's have a look at the answers here. So despite the audience saying that 77% of people actually did servicing in-house, and I think it was 15% used an off-site service technician, only 38% of you as Eve users are actually making use of the servicing function, which is great because we're going to be running through this today. So what I'd like to do is to actually invite Ian to take over the screen. And what we're going to do is to run through some of the basics to start off with when it comes to setting up and using Eve to actually put your servicing through it. So I'm going to pass over controls to Ian now. And the first thing that we're going to be looking at is just making sure that your stock types are set up correctly to take advantage of the servicing function. So how are we doing in Perfect? So Ian, if you could show me how to go through and look at my stock types and see what's available for servicing and the bits.
Yep, absolutely, John. First thing that we need to do is to go to the inventory module of Eve, and then we are going to find something out about our stock types that we can set up that will help us with servicing. So the first trick, obviously, of servicing anything, whether it's in Eve or not, is for it to be known that it is due for service. And there's a way that we can set up Eve to make sure that our school equipment, and also, principally for revenue reasons, our customer equipment is available and marked for service, and will remind us when that is due for service. So if we go to inventory, stock types, and find, we then call up a stock type that we would generally use for servicing. I have a message on my screen, tell me if it's coming through on anyone else's, that GoToMeeting is not sharing this screen. Can you tell me, please, John, what you are seeing on your screen?
Okay, I'm just seeing at the moment, so it's frozen with the hourglass in there. So
marvellous, Joyce. Let's switch back to yours then.
Take over control, and you can describe as I present.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Okay, it's working again now. So do you want to see if it'll carry on, and we'll take over?
Okay, let's see if it does. Sorry about that, folks. Technology is killing us here. So if I enter in a stock type such as regulators here, I've just typed in my stock type field REG. If I open up that regulator stock type, there are some key areas on that stock type that will help you to be able to mark things for service or not. And the first of those is on the right hand side that you will see that says, is this a stock type that you would wish to mark for service? That will allow you, by simply placing a check in this box or unchecking that box, to indicate to Eve that every time a piece of equipment is sold by you to a diver, or indeed is brought in, we'll look at that later, by a diver to you for service and you've never seen this item before, Eve will start tracking that service history. And one of the ways that Eve can track that service history is to be able to say how long will it be before that item needs servicing again. And that's what this service period in months is here for, so that for regs, if you feel that 12 months, as most manufacturers recommend, is the appropriate service period, simply enter in 12. Obviously, if it's cylinders, and in certain parts of the world that would still be 12 months. For those of you listening today within the UK, that might be a 2.5-year period of 30, and so on. So we indicate that that is going to be something we want to track for service, and also that service period. Another area that you will want to make sure is checked for those of you, and I think it was 62%, something like that, 77% actually, now I come to think of it, who are doing in-house servicing, is you'll want to be able to have technician activity available for that item as well, i.e. to indicate when we look at the service bookings what exactly it is that you are doing with those items. So those two boxes need to be checked for any of the stock types, regulators, BCDs, cylinders, etc. that you want to service, and also this period here. And what this period will do for you is, if I sell a regulator today, that will mean that within Eve that item already has appended to it a next service due date 12 months from today. Okay, so that's our first area to check that you have what you want against the appropriate stock types.
Thank you. And do you think? I think it'd be good to run through a sale where we actually run through sell a new item of a regulator, so that we can see where that information is held and how Eve then picks it up, possibly then to find it, or even set up an have that information set up an Eve Auto email agent. So that is it possible to make a sale of a regulator to a new customer?
By all means. So if I go to a new sale, and I will go through this pretty quickly, it's part of the standard sales procedures that you guys will know. I pick an employee, I pick a customer, and then I am going to pick a stock type, and that stock type will be regulators. Just waiting for a pop-up note to appear here. And then I'll pick a regulator to sell to this customer. We will see after I've sold it, I'll just pick one very swiftly, that from all the regulators I have marked here, and there's going to be thousands of them, let's pick any regulator I suppose will do. This particular one here, I say yep, this regulator, this because I have two cost centers on here, so ignore that. This has been marked for a serial number. I haven't entered that serial number into Eve. I have now. That's going to record the particular serial number for this diver. If should there be any warranty issues, any call issues, I'll finish off that sale. This guy will just pay cash at this point. And this guy, Derek Walton, is now going to be in the system as owning that regulator. So if I were now to go to Derek Walton, the customer on this sale, his particular record, so if I go to the customers area, call up his record, I'll then be able to see on his equipment items list the fact that that item is there for him and is going to be available for service, or sorry, due for service at a particular point in the future. Now that's just going to give you an example, if you like, of that, but this isn't actually how you'll be able to find out from Eve what is due for service. As we'll look in a little while, Eve's going to do some things for you in the background that will allow you to see that information, or for that information actually to just work for you, to appear for you. So if I go onto his equipment item record, look at when next service may be due, and we will find, once I put that in the right order, of next service due of regulators and all of these other areas, these items will be here for us, and I can make sure that all of these get serviced. As you can see in the past, I've gone somewhat over the top with the fact that on various tests I've indicated snorkels might be for service. Good luck to you if you can. But these items are all the items that Derek has owned for me. There's the one that we've sold today, 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you can see, it's on the 18th of January in 2013 that is next due for service. So that information is recorded against a customer record immediately, simply by the fact that I've said, yes, regulators for service, yes, they have a 12-month period. Now, once
so just to clarify on my understanding, that when you make a sale of an item that you have in your inventory on your Eve system, providing that you have the stock type marked correctly for service and the potential period, if there is a serviceable period, then that will automatically be allocated to that customer. But what happens if you have a customer that comes in and hasn't bought an equipment item from you? Can you manually add that item to the customer's record?
You can add that item to the customer record in one of two ways. You can either add that item at the point of servicing. I was going on to the report, so I'll ignore that. Or we can add that in simply by going to data and equipment items. So one of the things, and there's pros and cons to each. One of the things that some stores are doing around the world is just trying to keep a record of their diver's items. So even if this item wasn't necessarily due for service, if you happen to know that the diver had that item, they brought it in just for a sale, you can record the fact that that is owned by a certain customer. You could note down the next service date. So let's say that was, you noted from the cylinder it was so-and-so. Obviously the serial number, should you wish, whoever is the manufacturer of that cylinder, whether it is a 15-litre or however it may be. So that item can be in here straight away for you, as much or as little information as you want. What sizes do I have again? Cylinder? None at the moment, never mind. So that item, the key point for us is we have 18th of May 2012, that item is going to be due for service. So I've recorded that item very simply at this point, just from say the guys brought it in for an air fill, nitrox fill, etc. It's also possible to do that straight onto a service booking. So if the item was one that you hadn't seen.
I think this is a great time now to show, and I think it's a great time now to show how to set up a service booking, and once that's completed, then if people have in-house technicians, then to go ahead and show how that can be completed.
So if we go to the services module, go to a new service booking, again the standard screens in Eve, we try to keep these pretty much the same for you all over. The modules of Eve, we call up a particular customer. If it's a new customer, you go to new. If it's an existing customer, pick an existing customer. Pop-up notes to help you will appear if you set them to appear. You might want to know about multi-sale items, certification level, etc. The next areas that you can work through, if you're not used to this, is either go through these boxes that you'll see at various points, or you can use this cool bar on the right of the screen to then say, well, what's the start date, whether it be now, tomorrow, etc., Friday, whenever you're going to start that particular service booking. What's the due end date? I'm going to put down a week at this point, but you could, if it was going to be a lot longer, change to much greater distances as well. Once you've done that, the next area to go to is equipment. You would see under any of these areas, by the way, all the existing equipment that is marked for service. This is just a list now of the 4 items under the regulator stock type that Derek Walton owns and at some point will be available or will be needing to have service. If it's a new item, as John was saying, we can simply click onto this new item box here and again go through this area. So whether it be a regulator, I'm just calling up your standard stock types, ones that we have marked for service. I'm going to say its next service is due for today, obviously, at this point, or it might actually be at the end of the month, whatever it may be. If you want to record its net worth, do so, though that's more really for those equipment items that are yours. So I have saved that particular equipment item. It is now in this Receive Items tab. The next thing to do is, obviously, if there are other items that the customer is bringing in, you can continue to add on other items. Again, stay at Equipment, go to Add a New Item. Or you could select from existing items. You can continue to build up work on this service booking. But what I'm going to do now is move to this area here where it does say that cylinder. And I am, at this point, if nothing else is being done, I can simply say, yep, I've got your cylinder. I know what you might want to do on it because you're going to tell me. Let's say it has a broken valve that I'm going to fix and it needs so and so. If you're wondering why these suddenly appear, as far as the instructions or the fault, you can create these 5 options as you see fit by right-clicking as you see and editing, and I put in a couple there of broken valve, or I could create this one as being, say, a hydro test, and that would mean that I could simply click on that to indicate it needs a hydro test. It is also a free text area for you, so I could say it needs to be repainted, and so on. At that point, with no other work being done at this stage, I've just recorded that booking. I can simply save that booking, and should I wish to, depends on what you want, you can now produce a service agreement layout for that customer, that they sign off the fact that they've agreed for that service to be done with whatever wording you wish on that. Just to give you an indication of that wording, this standard print layout, I'm just going to open this print layout to show you one key element of these things, and it's not always easy to see, which is that the actual blurb, if you like, the wording, is all contained in this area of the service agreement. If you right-click on that and hit Edit Text, guess what? It all comes alive, and you can type in something almost as long as War and Peace, as you've seen on this one, that you might wish to have on your service agreement, so you can customize those to be as you would wish them to be. So I can print one off, ask the customer to retain one, I can place one with the item, I can also with the item put on any of the other types of labels or other bits of paperwork that you want attached to that item if it is having to be sent anywhere or just moving to, so your service technician knows what to do with it. I've saved that booking. Customer can walk off at this point. I've got the item in. We can start work. Now when we come to start that work, all that we would do is go to find that service booking by any of the usual criteria you use, and you're used to all of these search fields, I'm sure, either by a customer name, so I could have found it like so, or I could find it by the booking number, or ticket number, or dates, or items serviced, and do exactly whichever is the most convenient way for you. Remember, all that information will be on that piece of paper that you have just signed off, or sorry, have just attached to the item. So very simple for your service technician to call up this particular service booking. They go into that service booking, go to the item or items that are there, and they can start work on it. In terms of starting work, guess what? They can indicate that they have started work. They can also, on these action taken, again, you would right-click to create the ones that you want as your more common, but you can also put on your free text information. You can also learn how to spell. If work has ended, you will see already that, because previously I placed a year against cylinders for these things, that has appended a next service due date to exactly that period that we've defined against a stock type after when the work has ended. The technician can enter in their name. If there are stock items associated with this work, those stock items can also be added. And those stock items can be added, and they will be added in this area here. Those stock items can take a combination of either labour, so I could say that just a simple labour charge on that was so-and-so. You will see that Eve has calculated the appropriate tax for you. There could be a handling element, obviously, and if there are actual parts, you'll notice on the toolbar that there's a parts area here, and then we go and search for those appropriate parts that we used for that. Whatever stock types you have set up, you will find those parts listed. Got just the 805 to choose from. I suspect I'm going to choose something rather bizarre here just to indicate how that will work, and you can see that those parts have been added. So that will also allow you to keep your service kit inventory correct, to keep the correct pricing, to indicate which parts are labour, etc. That is now a completed service booking. One thing to just make you aware of insofar as cylinders are concerned, should you need to put in more specific information with cylinders, there is an extra tab. You'll see earlier I was on this general tab specific to cylinders if you need to mark certain types of information about paint condition, the types of abrasion scratches, serious or otherwise, pass fail, etc. So these are areas you might wish to look at if you're doing in-house cylinder work. At this point, with that work having been done, I can quite simply save this booking. As far as payment is concerned, I've got a couple of options at this point. I can simply leave it as it is, if you like, and then when the customer were to come in, I could look under the special stock type that's in Eve of equipment servicing, and their booking will be there. The alternative I have is that I can send that, if I wish to, straight to a new invoice at this point. Simply by hitting new invoice. Because this customer has already an ongoing invoice, I've been given the option to send to that, or I could send to that new invoice, and if I wish to do so, that would simply take me straight to a new sales receipt. Bang, bang, bang. There we are, ready for the customer to pay. That pauses for you, John.
Excellent. So, I mean, you can see the process going all the way through there then in terms of picking up either existing equipment items or having to create new ones, plus registering what's going on in terms of labour and handling parts and so on as well. I do have a question that came in from Graham Pace at Ocean View, which he submitted a question prior to this webinar. And he asks, can stock items, as in equipment items that are on a customer's record, be merged? He's asking this because he's got different stock items due to staff incorrectly adding items such as dry suits or dry suits with a space or just the term dry suit. Is it possible to merge, say, these three items into one, and will this make our service bookings more efficient?
Yes and yes, and the way that you do that is you go to module, you go to equipment items find, you call up that particular customer's equipment. Let's stick with this information here. Let's imagine these were two dry suits in that example, and I'll highlight one, highlight another, and right click on those, hit merge equipment items. That will put those items back into one item record for you. Eve will ask you which one is the master item, either the one that is in your example, John, correctly spelt or with the correct serial number or whatever it may have been, and I've merged those items. If there had been previously service bookings done for each item, let's say there'd be two for one and one for the other, you'd now have one item with a previous history of 3 service bookings.
and the next service date will be the one that goes from the latest, if you like, booking attached to those items you just merged.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you, Graham. That was an excellent question. So what I wanted to kind of ask the audience, I'm just going to take the screen back temporarily from you, Ian. Let me just grab it back.
How very rude.
Okay, what I wanted to do was to, obviously in the promotional emails that we sent out advertising this Eve user group webinar, was to say how servicing could be used as an opportunity to actually get customers to come back into the dive centre or dive business or resort as a way to offer a service, and obviously then have the opportunity of further add-on sales as well. What I wanted to ask the audience today was actually who is sending out servicing reminders. So I'm just going to launch another poll. If I can ask the audience just to have a read and then answer the question for me, please. Okay, so about 3/4 have voted so far. Just leave it another 5 seconds. Okay, let's close that and let's have a look at the answers. So, do you send out servicing reminders? 13% yes, they're using the Eve Auto Email Agent. 27% are doing it manually, and 60% are not doing it yet. So, one of the sort of big and key things about using Eve, particularly for servicing, is the fact that some of this can be automated. And on screen, you can see an example of a servicing template that some Dive, PADI, and Eve users are already using, which is a template using our RIP design, which is being used with the Eve Auto Email Agent. Now we have SQL coding that will actually do the searches automatically for you to go back through the database and search to find out whatever time frame you put down for, say, a regulator or BCD or a cylinder and so on. And when it finds a customer with a bit of with an equipment item that falls into it, it will send this nice mail merge template. Now you can see here it's merging the field first name in there as well. And if you read the example body text just here, it will say, did you know that your square brackets equipment should be serviced to keep it doing the job you want it to be doing, given the dives you want it to have. So it's a little bit of a web copy speak just there. But what's going to happen is it's obviously going to merge in that person's first name. But where it says equipment, then it's going to input the stock items that it's found on the search. Now, Ian, I just want if you could just explain to us what happens, for example, if you've got different stock types, or say you have 2 BCDs. How would that present in this email?
If you bought 2 BCDs on the same day, you would get the email twice.
Okay. So would they be separate emails, or would you get the two?
They would be separate emails if it's of the same stock type. If it is of different stock types, it will list, so that if you had bought regulator and gauge and computer, all of which you'd put for a year, it would be listed in there as 3 items.
Okay, excellent. Now we have the SQL coding, and as I say, it's being used already. So for example, some centres set it up so that a month before the equipment is due for servicing, it sends out the first email. Now if someone comes in and books that bit of equipment in for servicing, then they're not going to get any further emails. If they don't bring it in, you might set up one which is a week before, which is just another reminder, maybe with a slightly different bit of text, and maybe one on the day to say that it's due for servicing. Now we also have the SQL coding, I believe, and Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, that we could set up so that if your service technician has said that the work is complete, then it could automatically send out an email to say that your equipment has been serviced and is ready to be collected and obviously paid for as well.
That is true, and one thing I think I'd like to emphasize to the 87% of the folks who aren't at this stage using this auto email agent is that on average, it would appear that the increase of service income from switching on the auto email aspects for servicing due, the average increase in servicing income in the 3 months after the switching on of the auto email agent compared to the 3 months of the same year previous is over 300%. So I would urge you to, if you're not using the auto email agent for this type of job, to use it, and for any inquiries about the specifics of getting these templates or of creating your own, or of tweaking the little bits of SQL that allow Eve to do all that work for you, just do contact John, James and I.
Okay, excellent. So one of the important things, and I think one of the reasons why some centres have been so successful in using the auto email agent to get customers to come back in and bring their servicing, is also to do with the wording, not only within the email body, but also to do with the wording of the title as well. We've had some very successful emails that have gone out, which is, you know, bring your item in and get it serviced and get a present from us. For example, one centre was actually saying that if people did servicing, then what they do is they provide a cylinder or an air fill and a space in their pool to check it. And obviously by getting them back into the swimming pool, got them into diving again, maybe if it had been a bit of time or a gap, and they would see other courses going on. And there's always, of course, that sort of cross-sell that happens naturally from that as well. Now, of course, with using things like servicing, if a diver hasn't been diving for a while, then they might not know when they're going to go diving next. But by keeping their equipment serviced, it means that they have the option to do that. And quite often, it's, as I say, it's just a great way to remind people that, you know, how much they love diving, and it's something they should be getting back into if there's been a bit of a break there as well. And of course, this is important for your instructors and professional diving staff as well. I think in almost all countries there is some form of regulation which actually asks them to make sure that their equipment is serviced, maintained and up to date. And just before we talk a little bit about importing school and rental equipment in there and having that so that Eve can remind you to do servicing, I just wanted to get people just to think a little bit about the titles of emails, and basically what I call beating the spam filters. So this is both in terms of the spam filters in people's inboxes and email accounts, not using things such as free and cheap and so on, which are words that are blocked, and you can actually Google lists to find out words that you should avoid in your titles, but also thinking about our own human brain and the spam filters that we have. If an email is boring or it has a boring title, and some of us get several hundred emails every day, then we kind of go through and we sort of almost select the ones that we're interested in, you know, what that subject title is, and is it going to be interesting enough for us to actually read. We're trying to cut through the sea of spam currently that's flooding into our inboxes. So the email message that you're thinking about sending as your servicing reminder needs to really shout, if you don't open me, you're going to miss out on something of real value. And there's a couple of things that you can think about when you're designing your actual email titles or your subject titles. Ideally, what should happen is that these things should be what we call actionable. Now, for example, they're going to learn something, or it's going to benefit them in some way. For example, the person that was offering their diving equipment a gift, which is basically a thing, go in a swimming pool to check that there were no bubbles from the servicing and so on. Also, you want to think about it being keyword conscious as well. So in terms of it's hitting the right bit, maybe there is the word service in there, there's the word equipment or your own equipment in there. Now, did you know that actually you can actually mail merge a person's first name into the email subject title? So if you were to put into the line that when you're creating your template and you put in square brackets, first name, close square brackets, your equipment is due for service, when the auto email agent picks this up, and for example it was sending an email to me, I would receive an email which says, John, your equipment is due for service. If that comes into my inbox, I'm much more likely to open it because it seems to be more personalized for me. Now, also your email titles want to be reasonably brief as well. Remember, particularly with mobile phones, that subject titles get truncated as well. So if all the keywords are right at the very end of a long sentence, it's going to be cut. Now, you also want to think about it being clear. Is it easy to read? And when we talk about definitive, is it the best information that they're going to find on this subject? In terms of, is it key? Is it something you think they're going to be interested in? Now, the other thing, the kind of flip side to this is sometimes asking an intriguing question. You know, maybe you need to click this ... Now, this is more to do with marketing, I would say, for something else. So I would say with your reminder emails, your servicing reminder emails, is maybe to think about the top 4 or 5 points when you're coming up with your own title. Now, I'd like to just flick back to Ian, and I'm going to pass it over to Ian and just ask him how to just to explain how we might actually go in importing our school equipment into the Eve database so that Eve can actually find out when we need to service our school equipment. So if I can just pass it back to you, Ian.
You should have my screen now, everyone. So, yes.
Okay.
One of the standard...
Can we hear you, Ian? Okay, I think we're losing audio a little bit, Ian, if you can...
I can hear me. Can you hear me? Hello, John. Is there anyone out there?
Okay, still can't hear you, Ian.
Very faint. Just keep going.
Can anyone hear me now?
They're very faint, Ian.
I'm not fainting, and I can't make it any louder, I'm afraid. It's on the loudest it was, and nothing's changed from previous, so...
Okay, just leave that.
That's as good as it gets. One of the areas that you can... Sorry, James?
Okay, you better. We just lost the audio there, Ian, so if you could just repeat the last 30 seconds there for me, so almost go back a stage, I think.
That was probably as if my wife was in charge of life. She reduces the audio on me quite well. Right, what I was saying is one of the standard templates that you have for import into Eve from the File Import menu is the Equipment Template Import, which you can use both for bringing in school equipment into Eve on a bulk scale, but also you should note that if you have a large database outside of Eve of customer equipment, and if you look at this file, clearly the more information you have, the better, but our key points really are that in order for this for servicing, you want to note down what is the next service due. Obviously, if you have serial number information, if you wish for your own rental equipment to have barcodes for future, you may wish to have that. So pop in the information as you have it in this Excel format. Leave the customer blank if it is you, i.e. your school equipment. Otherwise, you can enter in either an existing customer name, or if you have a customer ID from Eve. A customer ID is simply every customer in Eve has an ID. You as the owner would have naturally come up with a customer ID of 1. Everyone has that information in Eve, but otherwise place those names within, as in Derek Walton, as you saw earlier, or Ian Sipes, John Carlin, James Rogers, and Eve will assign those bits of equipment to that customer record. But principally, in answer to the question about school equipment, this is how you can bring in your school equipment en masse into Eve, and it will thereafter be available both for rental and also for service, so you'll be able to see at any point which of your school regs or cylinders, etc., are due for service.
Excellent. I can see, I think it's in column K, isn't it, that you can import next service due date?
Yes, right there. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, and would it be something that you might set up, maybe an auto email agent specific for yourself, or is that something the auto email agent would email you automatically? You could see if
the auto email agent will do that. You also have these options from File Reports at the top menu. If we go to Services and then hit Show, you can see those services due over any particular period. So if you were just looking for your rental equipment, then remove the customer equipment from that checkbox, and if you wanted to see, for example, those that were going to be due within the next 3 months so you could get ahead of the game, then you would quite simply specify that range. And here I said of all varieties of equipment, that if I just wanted to see that for, say, cylinders, I could remove all, and then quite simply just say cylinders, rental equipment within the next 3 months, and that would show me, and because of the way there aren't any, but it will show me there what would have been due. Let's do it for all, and then you can go and service your own equipment internally to make sure, obviously, that you are obliged, keeping up with all the obligations we have for the safety of our divers.
Just a question that's just popped up, sorry, Ian. You mentioned, obviously, if it's school or rental equipment that's coming in, on that import file, which you went to, was it file import, and
keep
then
the customer name blank.
You keep the customer name blank, and then that will allow you to do it. So it'll be quite quick and easy. You have to paste in each individual item that you own. It needs to be a line, say, for each set of fins, a line for each set of boots.
Yes, for everyone, yeah.
And that would be the same if you, for example, were putting weights into your rental items as well. You'd have to, if you've got 15 lots of 1 kilogram weights, then you need to have 15 lines for it as well.
Really depends on how you're hiring those out, John. If you're hiring them out in 1 kilo blocks, yes. If you're doing them in made-up belts, then just do the made-up belts.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to put a little. Okay, just quickly, I'm just going to put a little poll on screen just to find out who is actually using the school equipment and has got it loaded into their Eve system. So let's just put this final poll up now. Okay, so just give people 10 seconds or so. Okay, so we've got 2/3 people voted so far, so just give them the 5 seconds and then we'll close the poll. Okay, let's have a look at the answers. So what we're seeing is that, as I say, 46% so far have their school equipment loaded into Eve and would be able to take advantage of the automated facility to find out whether it's due for servicing or not. Okay, sorry, Ian, if you want to go back, you were just talking about equipment items.
I was simply going to say that on an ad hoc basis, as an individual new item comes into the school, simply go to Data Equipment Items New, where Eve will default to you being the owner of that equipment, which is what this .rental.equipment.customer is. That's you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to take control of the screen back just to kind of wrap up the proceedings, and we've got some time for some questions. So just before we stop this recording, what we wanted to mention, and we actually had these last year as well, but we've actually got some posters which are available in a PDF format. Yeah, I'll make sure you guys can see this. Okay, perfect. So this was something that was designed last year, and these are available for download. These can be things that may be added to websites, onto Facebook, or even can be printed out and put on windows or swimming pools, that basically just advertise the fact that people have winter blues, they're looking to maybe treat someone special for an amazing experience, and Discover Scuba is the option. And obviously, you know, if you're in a climate at the moment where it's particularly cold, getting lots of people in the swimming pool to try diving, get them ready for when it gets maybe a little bit warmer, then these might be useful tools for you. So what I'd like to do now is just say thank you to everyone for attending. I'd like to ask James just to stop the recording now, and what we'll do is open up the floor for questions.